Hello friends! Today we're going to be looking at my very late 2020 stats wrap-up video. January has been kind of weird, so all those videos are going to be coming out in February, but they are coming. Today again is my general stats. This is based off of just Goodreads because I didn't start tracking things myself until around September of last year, so I don't have any perfectly accurate stats to go by, but I'm just gonna go by what Goodreads has given me this year, or for last year, 2020. But starting this year, I am keeping up with my own stats so that I know that they're as accurate as possible for 2021. So altogether, I read a total of 27 books in 2020, which is probably the most books I've ever read in a year. For the last, including 2020, for the last 3 years, my Goodreads goal has only been 12 books. So 1 book a month was my goal every year. None of those years did I reach that goal until 2020, where I greatly surpassed it. So in 2018, I think is when I first started it. I think I read maybe 6 books that year, and then 2019, I almost made it with 11 books. And then last year, I made it to 12 about halfway through the year, so somewhere in the summertime. And then I didn't change it, I just kept reading just to see how many it's actually possible for me to read in a year. And I made it to 27. It may not seem a whole lot to you or to most people here on BookTube, but for me, it's a pretty big accomplishment and I will take it. I don't know the amount of pages I read this year. Both Goodreads and the Storygraph have very different numbers. On the Storygraph, it says I read around 6,000 pages, and Goodreads said I read somewhere around 9,000 pages, but neither one of them are correct because they didn't take into account the 3 books that I DNF'd last year, so therefore I didn't read the whole book, so I didn't read all of those pages, but a ballpark range would be somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 pages, but I don't have that information this year, but I will for the next time I do this video. So, looking at my target audience range, I read the majority of my books being adult fiction, or adult books in general, with a total of, I have my sheet here, of 13 of those 27 books being adult books. So that was about 48%. And then my next highest was YA at 8 books. And then I had a surprising number of middle grades this year, which was 6. And I was thinking, when I was going back to look at all of this, I was thinking I only read maybe 2 or 3, but it ended up being a lot more than I thought, with 6. So I enjoyed all of them that I read. Of course, 2 of them were rereads of Harry Potter, but they still count. Okay, and then looking at general genre next, the vast majority of what I read was fiction. So 25 of my 27 books last year were fiction. And then I read 2 nonfiction books. The nonfiction books were split 50-50. I had 1 science literature read and I had 1 memoir. And then if we look into the fiction genres and how they break down, I know some of these may not be correct because I have a really hard time fitting books into genres because so many books fit in so many different categories that I'm honestly usually not sure exactly where they go. But for these, I I looked up the most commonly shelved genre of each of these books on Goodreads, and that's what I went with. So here are my fiction genres broken down. By far the most fantasy books read with 13. And then my two least popular categories were classics. I read one classic and did not like it and did not finish it. And I read one historical fiction, which actually turned out to be one of my favorite books of the year. And then a smattering of other genres as well, like magical realism. I read 3 books with magical realism this year, and I didn't really love any of them. I did learn that this year. They were all kind of middle of the road, 3 stars for me. And then a smattering of all the other genres you see on the graph there. All right, on to star rating. I actually had a pretty good year in my books that I chose. I had the largest number of 4-star reads, which is pretty surprising, and it makes me happy to know that most of the books I read this year were books that I really liked. I had 6 5-star reads, which is also really well. I had 8 3-star reads, so those middle of the road books where I didn't love them, but I didn't hate them too much either, so still pretty good. I didn't have any official 2-star reads this year. I did technically rate Midnight Sun as a 2.5, but I did round it up as a 3 on Goodreads, so I'll give it that. And then I had 3 1-star reads, and that's because if I hate a book so much that I'm going to give it a 1-star, they're going to automatically be books that I don't bother finishing, so they're the books that I DNF. So any 1-star read that I ever have is going to be a DNF, and then a 2-star would be something that I really just did not like but could soldier through. So all in all, my average rating for the whole year was about 3.5 stars, which is, I guess, not terrible. It's middle of the road, but a little higher, maybe going towards good. So I'm happy with that. All right, so I couldn't come up with the one single favorite book that I had this year, but I do have a top 3. And they are in no order other than of how I read them last year. The first one would be These Is My Words. Just bear with me on the grammar there. These Is My Words. It's the Diary of Sarah Agnes Prine by Nancy E. Turner. Circe by Madeline Miller. And because I am just like everyone else in the world right now, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. One common theme throughout all 3 of them is that they have very strong, very independent leading ladies as the protagonist in all 3 of those books. And because I didn't start this channel until, I don't even know when I started it, September-ish, somewhere around in there, you haven't seen most of the books that I've read this year. And so I'm going to close this out by just quickly throwing up all 27 books that I read in 2020. I have grouped them by the month that I read them, but it'll be up on the screen for you. And if you have made it this far, I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that means I will see you soon. And again, here are all of the books that I read last year.